time I bend it, it turns, it works again. Yes.
Won a lot of games.
Hey, good money for them. But those are her clothes.
Lessons on the Holy Spirit. Hey, all this money you got hold of.
Hey, and they're all dragging on the side only.
Holy church, gee.
It's only one day.
Good camping games to me.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, see there. Hit 'em. Okay.
Just like high school. Same thing.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have a few more. First, next week, we will not be in here. Are we having church on Wednesday, service on Christmas?
I think the next two, we're doing something different now. Here, not right.
Yeah, next.
Yeah, we won't be here. Are we having service out?
Nothing, but the following Wednesday, New Year's Eve, we are. Just
But
need a vote.
is it a?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we won't be in here, we'll be here.
So for the next 2 weeks, we will not be in here. So just be aware of that, and then there'll be a different teacher. We got some other guys that are gonna come in and continue this series of lessons, with the rest of the fruit of the Spirit. So, today we're continuing, I'll walk through that, the fruit of the Spirit, just to kind of come back to the same starting point each time, of the attributes that are produced by the Spirit in us when we are allowing the Spirit to lead us. When we're walking with the Spirit, and it is living in us, it produces these attributes. So we talked about several of them already, and it all comes from Galatians 5:22 and 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. So we covered the first four. We've got four left, and then there's one tonight. So we're kind of right in the middle with number 5 on 27. So Steve has mentioned from the pulpit before, has referenced the Jason Bourne movie, film clip, which I feel that I can reference it to because if he says it is okay. There is a scene in the second movie in that series where the CIA thinks they're caught a break on catching up to Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne's an assassin. He's continuing trying to escape the CIA and not figure out what's going on. They think they've caught a break because he's gone into another country and he gets caught on camera. Going through customs, he looks straight at the camera. And so they're all hovering around saying, okay, wait, what do we do now? What does this mean? And someone says, well, it's really random that he shows up on the screen. And then someone else says, I tell you what, he's made his first mistake. And then the girl from the back of the room who knew him before, knew the other assassins in the program before, pipes up and says, it's not a mistake. They don't make mistakes. They don't do random. There's always an objective. How in the world does this tie into kindness? Just like last week when I was looking through this list of fruit of the Spirit and I saw patience, I thought that's a little different. You see kindness, I'm like, that's kind of random. Doesn't seem to necessarily fit in as a fruit of the Spirit. It's kind of just like kindness. That's just like being a good, being nice to folks and that kind of stuff. Seems kind of random. I'm not going to say that God made a mistake by including that. That would be really bad. But you get the picture here. The line in the movie fits here just like it did there. It's not a mistake. God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't do random. There's always an objective. There's always a reason. And I think we'll talk a little bit tonight about the reason for including it here and what exactly the objective might be. This one's a little bit tougher to describe, I think, than maybe the past one we've done, so please feel free to jump in. We'll have a few more questions here early on than we had before. But as we have with the prior attributes, I think the best place we can start is by defining kindness and say what it means so that we can know what we're even talking about. In this case, I think part of what I wanted to do was talk about what it's not. What is kindness not? So is kindness niceness? If we had to reference this up, is being kind the same as being nice? No, it's not. Being nice or niceness is following social customs. It is being polite, show proper etiquette. There's a story that's all a great example. If you see a friend or an enemy for that matter, and has something dangling from his or her nose, it may be nice to say, hey, you look good today, and just completely ignore the fact they've got something hanging out of their nose. That would be nice, but it wouldn't be kind. A kind say would be, hey, you look awesome today, man, but you got a little something there, not just take care. That would be a kind way to say it. Not nice, you bring, but it's kind. There's a difference there. So it's not niceness. It is kindness to goodness. Probably not, because I think that's the next one in the series. So that one was pretty easy to say it's not goodness. Any ideas, just very briefly, about the difference between goodness and kindness? Kind of a preview for 3 weeks from now. Can anybody distinguish the two?
Goodness is like kindness on steroids.
Goodness is like kindness on steroids?
It's a whole other level. Similar, but it just takes things in a different place.
All right.
Kind of like the difference between nice and kind.
Okay.
Similar, but not the same.
Not so, yeah.
Goodness is the opposite of bad. Good is the opposite of bad. I don't think kind is the opposite of bad.
Yeah. So it's not, it doesn't have similar opposites. Yeah. Now, some of these terms I think we've discovered as we've gone through, we may not have a word that just fits exactly this is what this is. Then maybe this is what it's most like, but there's still some aspects of this, there's still some aspects of this over here. So the word is most like kindness, but there's still a little bit of few other things we've shared that we'll have to do. All right, last one is kindness, benevolence. I think we'll talk a little bit today about kindness, what certain acts of kindness may be, and giving things to others, particularly when they need it or it's not good. That may be kindness, but that's also kind of like benevolence. Is there a distinction there? If you are kind, if you are benevolent, are you necessarily kind? If you're acting that way? I don't think so. I think if you're benevolent means you are freely giving something, or benevolent means you are giving something away that is yours to someone else, and not requesting something in return. You may be really, really unhappy about it though. And with kindness, you're not going to be really, really unhappy about it. Maybe you're giving because you just think it's an obligation, of course, not because of the heart. As my wife always says, you're not doing it with a happy heart. All right, so what about kindness? What is that? If it's not those terms, do we have a definition? I found a few that I like, but I would love to hear if anybody has a description or a definition that they think fits.
Don't you think you could be good, but you could be good and not be kind?
Yeah.
Kind is an active goodness.
Kind is active goodness. Yeah, I think there were some definitions that led to that conclusion.
Your goodness by your actions, which would lead to benevolence, would be a form of benevolence. But I could be good and you'd never know I was kind if I didn't do something to show you that I was good.
Yeah, we'll talk about action, kindness and action, and how that looks in a little. Because there definitely is, in my opinion, there's a connection between the two.
I think there's another element to kindness. You have to actually consider the other person's perspective and make sure that they perceive it as kindness. I mean, what might be kind to someone might not be so kind to someone else. So it's a losing of yourself and trying to observe from the other person's perspective a little bit.
Absolutely, placing importance on them and where they're at.
So the archaic definition of kind, like the definition that we would find in the Old Testament, would be similar to a likeness, something that is similar to another thing.
Zach, the buzzword now is random. And so it's an action that might not be expected, or it might be something that's done on the spot maybe it's more planned, but it's, that benefits the other person that might not be expected.
Definitely not necessarily have to be pre-planned, certainly not expected, often unexpected, always expected. Here's a few that I like, of kindness. Acting in a way that promotes the welfare of others. The steadfast love that maintains relationships through gracious aid in times of need. Seeking to be well disposed towards another and to provide benefits in some way. And I like this last one as well. A disposition which delights in contributing to the well-being of others and which is exercised cheerfully in gratifying their wishes, supplying their needs, or alleviating their distresses. So you get both the disposition and the action, but it's always about something. And there's a cheerfulness involved.
Kind of sounds like a compassionate heart, or a heart of compassion.
Yeah. So we got a lot of scriptures we're going to look at hopefully and get through. But I think I sometimes downplay the importance or the benefit of personal examples. I think kindness is something that it's probably easier for us to see it and to identify it there than to maybe describe it with words. So what I would like to do, just to have a little bit more description of what we're talking about here, is to get in, but I've got kind of two things that I would like here. First, if there is someone who immediately comes to your mind when you hear the word kindness, this person immediately comes to your mind, I'd like to know what that person does to make you make that connection. You don't even have to identify the person, although you can if you want to. But what they do that makes you immediately think of them when you think of kindness, that they just exemplify kindness. How does that do it? And second, and we can kind of go back and work with this, if you can specifically remember a time when someone or someone's were kind to you or were not kind to you, and it stuck with you, and how that impacted you moving forward, how it influenced you moving forward. It had some kind of impact on what you did, either there or somewhere. So someone who just exemplifies kindness, just immediately think of, or examples of someone who was kind or unkind to you and the kind of impact that it had. Any example, that would be great.
Think of somebody that's selfless, get your best interest. I want to think of somebody that's kind. I'm not an answer for that one yet. I don't think you're
I know a lot of people in life define as kind. A lot of people sit in this room. I work with a doctor that, definition of kind, right? That never says no, as everybody, it's not just their words, it's not just their tone and the consistency that comes with that, but it's demonstrated daily in action. And it never wavers, ever. Always the same. When you describe somebody like that, it feels supernatural, right? It's coming from a spiritual place. It's more, Dr. Benz.
That's fine.
I just want to say, several years ago, I got really interested in this topic, and I've just collected for several years sayings and scriptures on kindness. And I found that there are over 90 mentions in the Bible to either kind or kindness. And I think in my thinking, I've always somehow correlated kindness with meekness, because I think there's a strong relationship between those two character traits.
Absolutely. Yeah. Meekness would certainly be one of those things that I think we can pull in, probably being referenced here, even though it's not used. It's part of it. And even some of the others we'll talk about in a few years as well.
Is loving kindness a next level?
Is what saying?
Loving kindness, is that like another level?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of what they're talking about here, because there is a specific attitude, disposition, actions that fit that loving kindness role. one example that I'll give, and then we'll move on. So, all four of my kids right now are at Decatur Heritage. We started out at Decatur City Schools and kind of gradually migrated over to Heritage over a couple of years. With Carter being the first one. And the same year that Carter started, Cooper was still at Leon Sheffield. And for the kind of same reasons with Carter, it was extremely crowded, a little bit louder, and Cooper wasn't doing as great as we had hoped he would in dealing with some of those issues. Despite being massive, he's kind of a gentle giant. And so we go and visit Heritage one afternoon, late in the spring, I guess it was. Regardless, we were there, and we go in. And one of the things that Cooper didn't have just a whole lot of friends that were close to him at Leon Sheffield. They were all a little bit apart. They were friends, but he just kind of had a little bit of distance from them. And we get there, and we walk down the hallway, and the 5th and 6th grade classes are all in one little block at the end of the hallway. We walk all the way down there, and they're just about to go out to recess. And it's pretty cold. But they're just about to go out to recess, and we're talking to the teachers. And little old Henry French comes running around the corner and sees Cooper there and realizes we're there to check out the school. And Henry forgets everything else he might have been doing, which was he was going to recess. And Henry, recess is probably extremely important. It's all, and he stops what he's doing and he runs over and gives Cooper a high five and hey, what's going on, man? And talks for a second. And then, hey, can you come outside and play with us at recess? Can you come to recess with us? And we're like, of course, absolutely you can. And Henry took him out there, ignored all the rest of his friends, put him at first base when they were playing kickball, which Cooper should not have played first base because he can't catch. But they put him at first base, made sure he was the first batter, was doing everything he could to make sure Cooper knew he was welcome there. And he was glad to see him. And it made I can't tell you the impact that it made. It probably more of an impact on me than it did on Cooper. Cooper was just happy to be playing kickball. To them and bring someone in that probably could have been a little embarrassing, probably was a little bit embarrassing, I think maybe one of the first pitches, he missed the ball completely when he kicked it, was, that's a problem. But Henry didn't care about anything. All he cared about was showing kindness to people. I'll never forget that. And I think it doesn't have to be huge, big things or, even important things like this. Kindness, just that attitude of, I want what's best for that person. I'm going to do what I can to make sure that person gets what's best for them. Even though it might mean I'm going to get something. Putting my focus on that. So, if you think of other examples as we go on, please feel free to throw them in. We'll have a few more there at the very end. But we'll go to some tradition. We waited until the end of the class, the last couple times, to talk about how that particular aspect of the quality we're discussing relates, how God shows us that too. So we're going to change it up a little. We're going to start with that discussion. We know by its inclusion in the fruit of the Spirit, let's listen to the fruit of the Spirit, that God exhibits kindness, that God is kindness. So we know that already, we know that's a fact. But how does he do that? What examples do we have of God being kind, of showing kindness? Anything specific? I think we can have a general idea that God is kind to us because He loves us and wants what's best for us. And that, yes, that's kindness. But anything specifically that we can point to or that we can reference? Any ideas on that?
Yeah, he pulled the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. That's pretty common.
Yeah. Took them from a bad situation and took that hardship away from them.
And initiated a relationship that would give us today.
Despite the best.
Jesus' example with the adulterous woman, I think he was kind, because he could have handled that a lot of different ways. But he took everyone's eyes off her, put them on him, and squatted down and started writing himself.
Yeah, I think think one of them, for me, one of his main qualities is kindness. That's something that almost defines part of who he was when he was here on earth. Because he's reaching out to those that are less fortunate. He's reaching out to those that aren't accepted by a lot of folks. He's healing the sick. He's spending time with people who no one else would spend time, and treating them in a way that no one else would have treated them. That's kindness, and that's what he did. It's love, but it's also kindness.
Giving us forgiveness of sin, even though we don't deserve it, by definition, is kindness. It's in our best interest.
You know, I think we can point to one of the very last things that Jesus did, and how kind it was. He was on the cross. Father, forgive me. He didn't have to say that. He could have been silent. He could have said, Father, take care of these dummies who decided to put me, he was kind. They didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve forgiveness, but that's what he wanted his Father to do. It was something, it meant something. It wasn't just something he was saying. And sometimes I get caught in that as thinking, well, that's just something he was saying. Well, he meant. He meant, Father, forgive them. Give them forgiveness. Even though they didn't deserve it. All right, so we got a couple scriptures we'll look through. Luke chapter 6. We'll start in verse 32 and we'll go down to a little bit into 36. Luke chapter 6, verses 32 through 36. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love you. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies, verse 35, and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful even as your Father is merciful. I've often stopped in verse 31 there at the golden rule. But man, you miss a whole bunch if you don't read the next couple of verses there. Kindness, and this of God here, includes not expecting anything in return for what you're doing. Clearly that's part of it. That is part of being kind is, I'm not doing this because of what I'm going to get. Now, I might get something because I'm kind. There might be a benefit to that comes to me, but that's not why I'm doing it. And that's not what my expectation is. Here, that's what he's saying here. Love your enemies, do good, lend, expecting nothing in return. And then the kindness of God is shown to all, right away. Kindness isn't just a believer's thing. It isn't just a neighbor's or family or the church thing. Kindness is shown both to the ungrateful and the evil, which seems really weird that God's going to be kind to evil people. We've all seen or know of people who, from all accounts, from what you can see, they're acting in an evil manner. Whether they're evil or not, they're acting in an evil manner. I don't want to be kind to them. But I'm supposed to. I'm clearly supposed to. What's worse than trying to do something nice for somebody and they are just so ungrateful about it? They want something else. We're running that with the kids sometimes. You try to do something nice, you try to get them, something to cook. Okay, they'll cook something for supper, specifically for like one kid, because that kid likes this meal. And when you have 4 kids, none of them like the same stuff. So you're always coming up with different things to try to feed everybody. And so cook them for one kid, and that one kid all of a sudden decides that day he never wants to eat that again. And he decided it makes him sick. Like, that's hard to be kind in that moment. And this for me, I didn't even do the cooking. She was the one who was doing the cooking. I was just watching. Waiting to see what happened. But we're supposed to be kind, be ungrateful, and evil. So naturally, the next question, why is he kind? There's got to be a reason. It's not. Why is he kind? Specifically,
Because he loves. And if we're looking at this, we look at this verse, and it's easy to pick out people in our lives that are ungrateful and evil and not kind, and they leave that impact that, we will no longer spend our time or energy. But if we're judging this rightly, we are the ungrateful and the evil. And yet God continues to love us and show kindness to us and offer the same forgiveness to us in spite of ourselves.
Yes, because of love.
God doesn't want you to judge.
So on that note, Romans 2, 2-4. We know that the judgment of God rightly falls on those who practice such things. They just talk about something. Do you suppose, O man, you who judge those who practice such things and yet do them yourself, that you will escape the judgment of God? Or do you presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience? Do you presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience? Do you presume that because he is kind and because he forbears, he is patient, and he is peaceful, that he's not going to hurt you for these things, that he's not going to, his judgment is not going to come against you because of that kindness and patience and forbearance? And the rest of the verse answers it. You presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience, not knowing that God's kindness is meant to lead you to repentance. That's the purpose of it. There's an objection, there's an objective for everything. There's a purpose for everything that God, and this is it, to lead us to repentance. God is kind to lead those people to repentance. Simple as that. You want to know that?
I think if you look at our Next Steps program, you have people coming in, and I hear this every time I'm in there. Y'all are so kind. Y'all are so kind. And that is showing Jesus to the world. And a lot of times it's even people living really bad lives that we consider to be evil that aren't seeing that. They're not seeing kindness anymore, and they may never have. So I think it's just so good to remember. And to me, I said this last time, but kindness is from the heart. Anyone can be nice. Nice is very surface. Anyone can be polite, can be nice, but kindness is truly looking out for the other person, even if you're uncomfortable in the situation.
Absolutely. Very well said. I think we've got to acknowledge that God's kindness is here. It's meant for repentance. It's meant to lead folks to repentance. But it's kindness. It's not indifference. It's not acceptance of evil or indifference, which is, okay, well, we'll let you do that. No, it's not that. Just a little bit later in Romans, in chapter 11, verse 22. Note then the kindness and the severity of God. Severity towards those who have fallen. But God's kindness to you, provided you continue in his kindness. Otherwise, you too will be cut off. The existence of God's kindness does not mean the severity is coming. Does not mean the judgment and consequences. Those two aren't mutually exclusive. He can be kind and still have these consequences.
We can look at the cross and see kindness, but we can also see wrath. Those two things go together in the same moment.
Which seems weird because they seem so adverse to one another. But they clearly are here. They were clear to see both. All right, a few more verses on God. On God showing us his kindness. Ephesians 4. This is one we probably thinking about when we first started. 4:32 through the second verse of chapter 5. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as God loved us and gave himself up to us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. We do need to acknowledge God's kindness. We need to acknowledge that God is kind. He's kind to us, and that he's kind to others. We have to do that first. But we've got another step after that. We can't stop there. We've got to be imitators. We've got to imitate God's kindness. We too need to be kind to those who are unfaithful. And those who are evil. Be imitators of God. Forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. And that's so easy to sit up here and say. It's so much harder when you're dealing with and you're dealing with the hurt or the fear or the uncomfortableness, that will tell you, I get super uncomfortable in situations that I'm not used to very much, and so it's like, when you're so worried about being uncomfortable and worried about yourself, you can't be kind to someone else if I'm focused on myself and wanting to make sure that I'm okay. Kindness is almost you're just giving all that up. Okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I might even be hurt. But I'm not even thinking about that because I'm thinking here, I can't be kind to you. When I have a major challenge with being focused too much on my comfort in the situation, my familiarity in the situation, not dealing with unique scenarios.
I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm hung up on the first verse that gives time to get right. And I'm thinking, like, how easy it is. It's like super easy. It makes you feel good when you're kind to someone and they receive it in a very grateful way. And then you think about those situations where you are making an effort to be kind, and there's no gratefulness whatsoever. Like, I just snatch back if I give them something, or like give them a little snarky, like, oh, I hope you have a good day, like just drip them with sarcasm. So that's incredible. So we recognize that's God. That's how He treats us. Incredible.
You start to think, it's funny because you think of these people who are so difficult you're having to deal with, and they're ungrateful and everything, and you realize, like, you slowly start to see kind of shit where you're like, wait a second, in that situation, I'm the one who's trying to be kind to them, and it's so hard, but also at the same time, that's God's in my shoes trying to be kind to me, and I'm that guy. Like, that's an eye-opener. I think that I'm that ungrateful for what He's done. How can He still be kind? How difficult it is for me to do that.
I think that's part of why it's mentioned here with the fruit of the Spirit, because it takes a supernatural kindness to continue to live that out. You know, Mark's example, undoubtedly, there's going to be time after time after time in our life where we're going to face that. And eventually, you can get hardened of heart towards it, you can become jaded to it. I got burnt the first time I ever gave somebody money on the side of the road. Literally forgot something and turned around, came back 5 minutes later, they're walking out of the store with a case of beer. I haven't given money to somebody with a sign on the side of the road since then. I've done food, but they never want food. They want something else. But that's hardened my heart for forever. And that's kind of the risk. So it takes a supernatural, spiritual kindness of God's Spirit living in us and through us to even grasp the depth of the kindness that God has for us.
I think we've seen that all the way through all these aspects, all these attributes so far. It's not normal kindness, it's not normal love, it's not normal patience or peace. It's the peace of God. It's the kindness of God. It's the love of God. Because it's different. It's more than we can understand here. Because there's not a limit where there always is.
You know, I'm glad we mentioned next steps in this, because I think like we have such a broad spectrum of individuals that get the help. And at the root of that is kindness, because they do come from different backgrounds, and they are involved in situations that, you know, many times we would not condone that. But we have to separate that kindness from that perspective. And, you know, there may be people that we may feel like we don't want to help them because they're not trying to help themselves. And ultimately, you know, we do help them out of kindness, but then somebody may have to have a hard conversation with them about how, like, there are things that you need to change, et cetera. But the point you just mentioned about, you know, you want them to be grateful for something, that's something that's very difficult with that ministry. We have some people that are very grateful for it, and they talk about how kind you are, and, you know, they try to get plugged in, and we have some that just don't. And I think probably the best example I have of that, I won't give any names, but, you know, if we have somebody who's utility bill paid, we send a message to pay utilities, the check gets cut, they do it, it's all gravy, it's easy. We had a person that, you know, their driver's license had been revoked, so we were helping them get it back. Well, it was all hung up in Athens. So like, I had to go to the Athens courthouse and like pay for something in cash and do all this stuff. And it turned out they had all this old tickets that were stuff. And so it was this huge long list of stuff way outside of the norm of like paying landlord. And after all that finally got taken care of, you know, told the guy we'd done it, like 4 hours later, I just get a message back, so thanks. Never hear from him again. And And for me, I was very frustrated because I'm like, I did all this, like, I have to go, you know, I'm gonna take time out of my day. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I can't worry about that. Like, if I'm helping with this, then I have to be willing to just help in whatever capacity. You know, it doesn't matter if nobody thanks you or things like that, because you're just gonna be different type of people. And in that ministry, you just get such a broad range that if we kind of go back to our perspective of that we are trying to get stewards of that money and being kind to people that, you know, deserve it just as much as we do, then that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, next up is credible. Okay.
But you know what he's talking about, though, you got to have the hard conversation. That is kindness. Because you desperately want to see them have a better life. And be able to provide for their family. So, kindness is more than just, have some daisies.
It's more than giving them what they want, or what they're asking for.
You really want to help people, and you want to give them, and that's what they need sometimes.
You want what's better for them, even though they may not understand at the time or believe it.
Yeah, because that conversation is not necessarily nice. You know, they're like when Brendan's had conversations with people, I've heard it's not a nice conversation by definition of the word, but it is the kindness of them trying to enable their success and get them on a better path.
Well, the ultimate purpose, the end goal for Next Steps is repentance. It's bringing people here. We're not doing these things just to be nice people or to be kind people. Like, that's not why we use the money that the members so graciously give for people that we may never see. It's because we're wanting something. We are trying to affect a change. You're trying to have repentance, trying to turn into repentance.
Well, I love the example because it's going through that and all the emotions that come with it, where God's working kindness in us and through us. We're trying to, he's teaching us what it really is and what it really means. And so he's strengthening us through that difficult and really defining clear purposes in our lives and helping us overcome things that will never make sense, that are only going to drive us away from faith, yet God uses those moments to reveal his kindness and to teach us what his kindness is truly about.
That's really good. All right, we got just a little more time. Any examples of kindness in the Bible that we see that maybe aren't just necessarily with God? People in the Bible. Stories that we told. Anything just pop out? Oh yeah, that was a good example of kindness. What do you look at? It was you.
Boaz with Ruth.
Yeah, that's the one that can't even grow. That's the one that's a lot. It's covered a lot when you're looking at this in the context. It's Boaz and Ruth, and they both exhibited kindness. Ruth exhibited kindness to Naomi. First off, staying with her, not following her. And then she got to experience that kindness herself. That kindness was turned back towards her. And I think, when I said earlier, kindness is done not with an expectation of what you're going to receive, but there is a connection a lot of times between what you get and the kindness that you've given. And that was the situation here. Boaz saw the kindness of Ruth and Naomi, and he was kind to her. I'm here to glean from his fields by keeping her safe, making sure she had plenty. Kindness reciprocated. Any other ideas on that? Or other examples? There's one that I knew about or certainly never considered in this particular aspect. We'll read just briefly here. About David. About King David. So in 2 Samuel, King Saul and his son Jonathan had died. And about David's anointed king. A long battle between the house of David and the house, what's left of the house of Saul. Eventually David comes out and he's victorious. He's the king. And in chapter 9, we're told about David's interactions with one of the only remaining individuals of the house of Saul, the son of Jonathan. try to say his name, but I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong. See, I know I was going to do it, I shouldn't have said that. Can someone else say it so I don't have to say it the first one myself? Mephibosheth. Yeah, you just gotta, no one say anything. Mephibosheth. We're going to call him M for the rest of the time. So Mephibosheth, is the son of Jonathan. So chapter 9 of 2 Samuel. And David said, is there anyone left of the house of Saul that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? Remember, David and Jonathan had this incredible friendship. And David made promises to Jonathan to take care of the family of Saul, to not do what so many kings would have done, which is when I take over, that earlier the house of the prior king is going to be destroyed, because I don't want them having any kind of opportunity to come back. That I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake. Now there was a servant of Saul whose name was Ziba, and they called him Ziba, and they called him to David. And the king said to him, are you Ziba? He said, I am your servant. He said, there are not still someone in the house of Saul that I may show the kindness of God to him. Ziba said to the king, there is still a son of Jonathan, he is crippled in his feet. So David has Jonathan's son brought to Jerusalem. Jonathan's son, thinking he is surely about to be executed as a part of this, the last remaining members of Saul's family. He falls on his face, and he tells David he's his servant, and then what happens next completely shocks Jonathan's son. Verse 9 in chapter 9 of 2 Samuel. Then the king called Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, all that belonged to Saul and to all his house I have given to your master's grandson, Jonathan's son. And you and your sons and your servants shall till the land for him, and shall bring in the produce, that your master's grandson may have bread to eat. But I have to read this in scripture. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, shall always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants, and Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king commands his servants, so will your servant do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. David showed Jonathan's son kindness from the very beginning. He provided for his needs, which is what we do in Next Step. We provide for people's needs. He provided pretty abundantly here. He provided workers to till the land. He provided you could sit at the king's table and eat here for the rest of your life. And we know that he did. Jonathan's son did eat there for the rest of his life. He was crippled, so he would have no way for that to have happened otherwise. David's kindness was shown not only by the words that he used, but more importantly by the actions that accompanied those words. It wasn't an empty saying. He followed it up with, here's what I'm going to do this time. And then he did. But the biggest thing that I saw here was David sought out an opportunity to show kindness. He had to go look for someone who was of the house of Saul. It wasn't just there staring him in the face. Jonathan's son didn't come to the gates and say, hey, David, can I come sit at your table and eat there forever? Is that okay? No, David had to look for him. In fact, he had searched a couple times. He's asked this a couple different times. He's really looking for this. He felt an obligation to show kindness, not only because of his promises to Jonathan, but I think because of his knowledge that showing kindness, particularly to someone who was your enemy, really, that's something that God would have done if he wanted to do God. There was one of the commentaries I was looking at was focused a lot on actions, and we talked about that a little bit. Actions, kindness requiring actions, and I think it does. Kindness is I can't feel kind and not show that kindness. That doesn't work. It's almost more like the goodness. I can be a good person, but I'm not really being kind to someone else. I'm actually doing something. But it doesn't necessarily require giving them something or providing for some kind of need. Words can be kind. You can show kindness through your words. Proverbs 31, the worthy woman. Proverbs 31:26. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is she's speaking with kindness. She's teaching others. She's speaking with kindness. Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. words can be kind, they're powerful. You speak with kindness in most situations, it's going to have an impact. When I was in high school, when I was in high school, I had a buddy who was a year older than me, and was the same age as my sister, she was a year ahead of me in class. Somehow me and my sister from Arkansas and living in Kansas ended up marrying not only people from the same state, but the same city and the same church. So my sister married Charlie Walker and I married Kelly, which is how that happened. I have no idea. The odds of that are just astronomical. But regardless, way before that happened, we were in high school, and I had a friend named Mitch, and Mitch was also friends with Aaron, and Mitch kind of liked Aaron, but Aaron was a little more popular than, everyone, including me. But I like Mitch. I wanted him, when you're a little brother, but you're not that much of a little brother, you kind of do a little bit of looking out for your sister. And so I kind of had to put who I wanted to be, taking her to the dances. And I wanted to do some good. So when I was a freshman or maybe sophomore, Aaron would drive me to school every day. We'd drive together. And every day on the way to school, she would talk about something, her hair, her clothes, she got a new pair of shoes, she didn't like how her hair was doing today, or something was wrong with her makeup, or something. So between getting ready in the morning and in the car on the way to school, she'd talk about something like that, very frequently. When I got to school, my path to my locker went right by Mitch's locker. And I would stop by Mitch's locker and say, hey, do you have any shirt today? And I would walk by, that's all it says. And he would use that information later that day. Hey, that's a really nice shirt, is that a new shirt? Or he would say, about the hair, and she's not bad with the hair, And he'd say, I didn't know it, he took it. So he'd say, hey, your hair looks great. And they ended up dating a little bit, and it was, fun and all good and everything. She had no idea, so fast forward maybe close to her graduation, and we finally tell her, hey, you realize that year that I was giving him information, I was feeding him inside information every day. And her face, the shock on her face. And she said, I can remember every one of those statements because I thought, how he's focusing on me, he's being so kind to me. And it had a big impact. That was a big reason why they eventually, went on to date for a little while. Because of the words he said. He didn't do anything other than just say something that I gave to him as the ultimate wingman. But the words meant something. For her, they meant something. He was able to show kindness. Again, I don't think we don't have to say, well, I'm going to give everything that I have to someone over here who really needs it. I'm selling and having to give them. Yes, that's kind. That's great, but kindness can be everyday stuff like that as well. And words are great. Words are powerful. Words can be kind. All right, takeaways. Kindness is a central characteristic of God. I think, God is love. Yes. First, God is love. I kind of get said God is kind. The kindness I feel like it's just right there. It's almost hard to separate that at all. That love is shown with kindness. As Christians, we should imitate God in everything, but certainly we should try to replicate that kindness, His kindness. That means we have to show kindness to the ungrateful, to the evil. Even when we're not going to get anything in return, or maybe we're going to get something we don't want in return. Be kind to God with something. Because the purpose of that isn't to make the other person happy or to make us feel good, although it a lot of times has that effect. The purpose is to show them the kindness of God, and the purpose is to show them the kindness of God that He's shown us for the ultimate purpose of living in certain things. That's why we're kind. So, if you're thinking, okay, why? How can you be kind to this person who's being so ungrateful, so ridiculous? Well, because I'm being kind to them because God was kind to me, and because I want them to be able to have the kind of relationship with God that I can have if I accept it. I'm going to replicate that kind of stuff. Show them as well. All right, so in a couple weeks, y'all will be talking about goodness, which is not kindness. We're going to find out what it is here in a couple weeks. Thank y'all very much. Have a great rest.